Hello and welcome to
Linear Random.
the Linear Random podcast.
We are your hosts, Ana and Markeen.
We don't usually do intros like this, but fair enough.
Well, I think we should try different things and then eventually we'll land on the one that feels right for us and we'll do that on a regular basis.
Can I do one for the meme of the dance at some point?
I don't think people will be able to see you, but you can try.
Very true. Today is going to be very much, as you said, a different
today's going to be
topic.
A completely random one. Forget the linear.
Yes.
It's just random.
Just random today. We are going to be no set topics. We're just going to go through things that have come up throughout our week, and we're going to see where that takes us.
Yeah, we've each come up with different topics, and we'll see if the other one will pick up on them, I guess.
Yep. All right. So, a really big thing that happened to us this week, we did our garden at last.
Yeah, I think by the time this goes out, it should be pretty much done.
Yep. For those who don't know, which is probably most people if you're listening to this, we moved into our current place about, is it 2 or 3 years now? I think this will be the third year.
I think this is the third year, yeah.
Yeah. And when we first moved in, our place was lovely. It had a front garden, a back garden. It was a 2-story house.
Was it lovely? I think the back garden was already pretty much taken over.
Very true.
By that point.
So the landlady, nicely enough, between when we first saw the place and moved in, had obviously had some gardeners, or maybe herself, came in and cleaned up the garden a little bit. But the back garden and the front hedgerow were just a bit of a mess, where they were just completely overgrown.
They were overgrown. It wasn't messy, but it was you couldn't see the fence.
Yeah, exactly. And in the front garden, the hedge actually grew, because our garden's kind of like at an angle. It's not entirely square, one side just sort of dips towards the house.
Yeah.
That's where the hedgerow was.
This is fascinating to everyone listening.
I know, it's just deeply fascinating. And it just grown out to the point where you actually had to kind of move around it just to get to the door. So about December, November last year, I took a hack at it, decided that wasn't working, and then the following day a guy with a hedge trimmer turned up to do the hedges nearby, and I just asked him, and a big industrial hedge trimmer, I asked him if he could do it, and I gave him 20 quid, and he just blitzed the entire thing, and it was amazing.
You bribed someone to do our garden.
I did, and it was amazing. He blitzed it. I wish I'd gotten him to do the back garden as well, but that leads us to what happened this week.
Yeah, which is, we bribed my sister with lunch.
Oh no, she owed us.
We'd gone to do her garden a few weeks ago. Well, by the time you're listening to this will probably have been a month ago. But a few weeks ago, she requested your presence.
Yep. Me in particular, because apparently I can take direction.
Yeah, not me, because I'm no good in any situation. In a zombie apocalypse, I would be of no use.
No, we need bards in the zombie apocalypse.
Oh, so I would just be reciting stuff.
Yeah. Shakespeare. I want Shakespeare as I bash the zombie skull in.
Okay. I'll start memorizing it then.
Thank you.
I don't think we'll be lugging around books.
You're ever going to abandon any of the books we have in our
house?
Well,
I think a zombie apocalypse scenario is not like any other scenario. I don't think I'll be lugging around all the books. I might select a couple.
Hey,
some special ones.
In the apocalypse, human history is getting wiped out. Are you really going to abandon all works of fiction? They could possibly never come back.
Oh, good point.
They're super valuable in an apocalypse.
Maybe I'd store them somewhere, whether I knew they'd be
Maybe
safe.
You just barricade this house, and that was the window stuff, sorry. Maybe we just barricade this house and keep all the books here and stay here and ride it out and hope for the best.
Maybe we just dig a hole and put them in boxes, bury them. Anyway,
yeah.
We're getting away from the point.
How
we did say it was random.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, she requested your presence in order to do her garden.
So particularly, she had a flower bed she wanted built. Now, flower beds, it wasn't even that particularly big a flower bed, But the important thing here is that like the way we were doing it, we had to dig up the earth and plant it, as opposed to just you build a box and then you put the earth into it. So that was intrinsically way more effort than normal flower bed. And that took like a whole day and then a little bit the following day and during some rain to get that done.
You did enjoy some
That
rain.
said, I'm not sure if that was more work than what we had to do in our back garden.
Oh, ours was a lot more work.
Yes.
So as we said, ours was overgrown, so we requested my sister's presents because she has a hedge trimmer.
Yes. Oh, and she put good use to it as well.
Yeah. So we got her and my lovely nephew Andre to come over.
And your other nephew and
niece.
They weren't so much help as they were
playing with our Nintendo Switch.
We're gonna play and sometimes try and distract you.
Yeah, sometimes call out to you from the window because we think it's so cool that we can see you.
Absolutely.
Down in the garden.
Yeah, just like, hey, Markeen, what? I'm up here. That's good, Jay. Real good.
Great. So they came over and we put that hedge trimmer to good use.
I think we started work. So we did tidy up the house beforehand, but I started work in the garden.
Yeah, I started work at like 8 o'clock in the morning, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that. I started stuff in the garden at about 10 something, and then the rest of the family arrives around 11, and over like I think by about 3, barring a 1 hour break for food, we had absolutely blitzed the whole garden. Like it looked like a hurricane.
See the floor.
Oh yeah.
It was amazing. I do wish we'd have taken before and after pictures
They probably do have pictures somewhere.
And send it off to the landlady. Oh, we did Facebook when we did our first barbecue.
I did a Facebook live stream or something.
Yeah, I wonder if it's still somewhere. But anyway, you can actually see the floor now, which you couldn't. Like, we had no idea. We didn't think the garden was going to be that big, just because of what we could see of it.
It's almost like awe-inspiring in a way, because those 2 bushes. So, aside from like a big hedge in the back garden as well, there were these 2 bushes that sort of crept out from the tiniest little like dirt areas where flowers are meant to be. These 2 bushes sort of just grown and covered like so much of the garden. And we have in our garden paving slabs. We don't really have grass, we have paving slabs that go across. And there's about 6 of them. That's about the width of the garden. And we only really had like half of one between those 2 bushes to move back and forth through the garden.
Yeah.
And it's always been it was always on the back of my mind. I think it was yours as well.
Yeah.
Since we moved in. We really need to like do something about this.
I mean, during COVID would have been the perfect time, but I think there was just a lot going on. Even though we weren't going anywhere.
We kind of needed to kick up the butt. I think the flower
bed at my sister's.
Yeah, that kind of parked me going, you know what? Even though it took a whole day and a bit, and my back almost felt like it was dying, and I got blisters on my hands, and everything hurt, I reckon we can handle this garden properly.
I just thought, to be honest, I just didn't know what I wanted to do with it, and then recently I started getting ideas for what I would want to have in our garden.
So our garden's going to look really nice after Tuesday or the end of this week, because by the end of this week we'll have a garden set, which is going to be a couple of chairs and a table.
Yes.
And at the end of this week we'll also have planted the first set of flowers. I know English.
Bushes.
English. That are going to go into the garden, and it's going to look incredible.
I mean, to be honest, what inspired this was that one of our neighbours has a lavender bush, and every time I pass, not so much now. I don't think it's. I don't know whether it's just
this season or something.
I don't know, but it doesn't smell so much now. But at the time, when I would walk past it, like just this waft of lavender, and I'm not a person, I don't like lavender in things, like in smells, in like perfume, in like.
But just from the bush.
But from that bush, like just this waft of lavender, it was amazing. And that's pretty much what triggered me. I have to have a lavender bush in my garden. And
you have a few more plants in your garden, though, don't you? You want like a whole tea set for your garden.
I do want a tea herb set, like chamomile. Chamomile.
Kamal. You even said you wanted lemon tree if you could get it. Is it a lemon bush?
I would like a lemon tree, but there's also a lemon. Lemon something bush. I can't. Lemon balm.
Lemon balm. Yes.
Bush. That smells delicious. There's also a lemon verbera something. Anyway, someone will be able to tell us how it's said. Yeah, that's basically just anything with a nice smell is what I want.
That's what you want. You also told me that you want depending on part of the garden, you want holly, blackberry.
I would like a blackberry bush just because I love blackberries.
Maybe if it's really good season, you can harvest stuff to make a pie. Though you have told me that this may not be the case with you around.
Yeah, I'd probably eat them all. And then get very, very sick. But yeah, the thing is, like, a lot of flowers, they look lovely, but they don't have any smell. And I would like to just walk through a garden and just get that waft of something. I'd like colour too, like,
carnation's your favourite plant?
They are. But they don't have a particularly good smell either.
That's true. But you'd plant a few of them in our garden as well.
I would. I'd like colour, but I would also like some bushes that have nice smell.
Be prepared for bees. We will get a lot of bees.
Well, yeah, we already do anyway. We get a lot of wasps.
That's true.
Near
I don't know if it's going to be any better now that we've cut down all the foliage, because after we did all this yesterday, tons of like tiny bugs and stuff just appeared.
So much bugs. There were flying, like
bugs.
tiny mosquitoes.
I'll describe it, and everyone will know what I'm talking about. Have you ever been walking on a hot summer's day in the country somewhere, and then there's just wall,
by water,
preferably by water.
Generally happens by water.
There's just like a wall of flying tiny bugs that will just hover in front of you, and you just walk through them, and that's the only way. And they stick around you for some reason, and then they leave. That sort of bug is what was all over our garden.
But we also had in the earth. We also had a lot, like as we were pulling out the.
As there's so much dead foliage and stuff, we had like tons of termites, worms.
As we pulled out each like bush from the earth, it just ungrounded a bunch of termites and.
I may or may not put this in the podcast. There is a video of when I was doing some prep work earlier in the week of our cat Millie bravely fighting the biggest beetle I've seen in years.
A battle for the ages. Millie versus beetle. The cat is very confused. Never seen a beetle before, Millie? I haven't seen a beetle in years either. This one this big. Alright. I think it's time I go save this beetle. There's going to be a fight. And I'm not sure who's going to win, but I'd rather no one got involved with anything. So let's go get this beetle out of there.
That was just in our garden. I think I've
never seen a beetle in person. I still didn't see it in person. I saw it in the video afterwards. I wasn't there.
Most beetles aren't that big. Okay, this thing had mandibles that were just huge. It immediately had a square off. I think what happened is I chopped down a branch it was on, and when I was moving it, it got dragged into the centre of the garden. And then I hear Millie shouting behind me, and she's obviously she's suddenly seen this, and it's gotten her attention. And from the video, she just pats at it for a bit. She's not sure what it is, more than anything. She just plays with it. I did save the beetle from our vicious hunter cat, who has so far eaten multiple flies, but little of anything else.
Nice.
Successfully hunting-wise. But yeah, no, there was so much weird grubs and stuff. And this morning I saw tons and tons of birds sort of darting in and out of our garden
Oh, that's nice.
and feeding on all the undergrowth we disturbed. There is one thing I got out of the gardening, and that's like, I don't know about you, and maybe other people can relate, but I find that I don't do stuff with my hands as much as I used to growing up. Like, I spend a lot of my time on my computer or reading a book or going out on walks, but I don't really do like a lot of stuff with my hands. I don't have DIY projects. I don't tend to like.
Well, no, because we both work in computer based stuff and jobs, and as much as while I was growing up, I did not gymnastics. What's it called?
Oh, freeform dance.
Well, that too, but no, at school.
Aerobics?
No.
She did a thing at school.
Just PE. That's the word I was
PE.
looking for. The letters
Not
I was
PE.
looking for.
Okay.
PE.
Okay, good.
Physical education.
Yes. But like I said,
because
as a
we
kid,
did that at school, and we played around a lot and everything. You know, we used to. We're just at the end of the generation that used to like come up with toys themselves. Like we didn't.
I don't think we can hold a monopoly on make believe toys and stuff.
I didn't. Did you play with Monopoly that much? I didn't play with Monopoly that much.
No, Monopoly.
Oh, you can't hold Monopoly. I'm with you now. I'm with you now.
Damn millennials playing Monopoly as children. No, the 90s.
I mean, we did, but not that often.
No chestnuts, no conkers. It was just Monopoly boards, non-stop everywhere.
Every day.
Forget
Monopoly.
Pokemon, Monopoly, everything.
No, anyway, no, we did, I mean, no, we don't hold the monopoly, but what I'm saying is we're towards the end of the generations that used to play with things other than Game Boys, and although we did towards the end of... I don't know about you, I'm speaking for myself. I'll speak, I won't say us, I'll say I.
I'll go to a park right now, find a stick, and play with that stick.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know plenty of other guys. Maybe this is a female thing where women just mature faster than guys. Or
what do you mean?
I'm an adult and I'll still go to a park and find a stick and just play with it
No,
randomly.
that's true. I would do that as well. Like, as a kid, I was my family will vouch for me on this. I was constantly just finding, whilst we were walking, I would walk away with this. I was like a dog. It's a weird way of referring to myself, but I was basically like a dog. While we were walking in the countryside, I would just find a stick, and that would be my stick for the rest of the trip. And then
as you do.
I'd have to leave it behind and I'd say goodbye to the stick.
But what I'm saying is, it's not just us that do that. Like, I know plenty of people who would probably do the same thing, and they're not from our generation.
I guess. I don't know. Anyway.
I think you're so divorced from the current generation. You think they don't even play with imaginary friends anymore.
Well.
Shame. You've turned old, man.
No, it's not that they don't play with imaginary friends, but I think there's a lot more technology in their childhood than there was in ours.
There is a lot more technology.
We had a Game Boy. We had phones.
I had a lot, actually. I had a PlayStation, I had a Game Boy Color, I had a lot of that stuff.
I think it's the countries as well, because I mean, my dad had a PlayStation, but I never played on it. I do remember sitting and watching him playing Lara Croft, Tomb Raider.
Yep. Very pointy breast, that Lara Croft in the PlayStation 1. Very pointed.
Absolutely. I had no concept of that, by the way. Like, it was just a girl in a game.
Yep.
Fair enough.
You get even more of those now. If you go on the internet, you find loads of ads for that stuff.
I mean, I'm not being funny, but, no, let's move on. Let's not go in that direction. Anyway. Yeah, so that's what we've been doing this week.
Well, I wanted to just follow up and say that there is something that's really nice about being able to just do stuff with your hands. I think people, as a kid growing up, I did not have any appreciation of gardening. I wanted to be left alone more often than anything else. My mum would drag me out to the garden. I'd be like, no, I really don't care. I don't want to be here. Fine, I'll do it. And I did have an attitude about it. But you know what? I'm not going to begrudge myself on my attitude about being forced to do something I didn't want to do. And it's one of those horrible things that parents seem to always be like, well, I'm not going to let you... You have upset me now because you have an attitude about doing something you don't want to do.
My dad was very much like that. If he would tell me to wash the dish... more so when I moved here, because before that... Anyway...
Like, you don't join the army and then have everyone go... you don't get forcibly conscripted into the army and then expect your commander to be like, oi, chin up, you know?
Smile more.
If you know what? I don't even want you here if you're going to have an attitude about it.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah. Like, well, that's great, I'll go then.
But yeah, it's one of those things that my dad did very much the same thing. He would tell me to go and... wash the dishes or what have you, which I know should be something that I should have to do anyway. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But for several different reasons, it just wasn't an attitude that I had. And he would have to tell me to do it. And obviously I would do it.
Yeah.
I would do it. But I wouldn't have a smile. I wouldn't have a smile on my face while doing it. I would do it begrudgingly. And it was very much the case of, like, don't give me an attitude.
Well, great. Now I don't want to do it even more now that you've told me this.
Yeah.
This is hardly building up the sort of structure and routine you want to instill in me.
It's like, you should want to do it. No one wants to do it. No one is like, oh, I really want to wash dishes now.
You say that, but when you get older, it's not so much as want to, as you see the necessity
in it. No, you have
in
to.
it, and
but
you
that's
start
what I'm
doing
saying.
it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not something you want to do, it's something you know you have to do.
Yeah.
But as a teenager, you're very much of the mindset that I don't want to do it. Why do I have to do it?
I mean, it's one of those things where I think to be a good teenager, the very least you do is you do the things that your parents ask you to do. Like, when it comes to tidying up around the house.
Which I think we both did.
We both did. It would be...
We just didn't do it.
I just hope that when we're the parents, we're not going to be the sort of people who are just like, you don't give me attitude while you're doing this thing. I'm just grateful you're helping out, son. Go clean the car. Okay, fine. You know what? At least you clean the car. I'm happy about that.
I do sometimes... I feel like we recently had an episode of me doing that to you, where I asked you to do something and you weren't happy to do it, and I was just like, ugh, okay.
In my defense...
it's more... No, I'm not... I'm defending myself.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm saying is, like, it's not a case of, like...
The first linear random domestic to call a podcast.
It's not a case of, like, I want you to do it with a smile on your face. It's more of a case of, like, I don't want to put you out, but at the same time, it would take me ages to do everything I wanted to get done by myself. So it's not like I want you to be happy about helping me. It's more like I feel bad that I'm having to put you out. Does that make sense? Like, my reaction wasn't from a place of like, oh, you're not happy about helping me. My reaction was more of a place of like, I know I'm, like, having to ask you to help me with this.
I get it,
but
I do.
Does that make sense? Like, it's not... I wasn't trying to come at you. I was trying to, like, make myself feel better about asking
you're
you.
not the sort of person who just says... You're not the sort of person who just tell me what to do.
I
love you, but you're not the sort of person who just orders me to do things.
I don't ask anyone to do it. I don't order anyone to do anything.
Exactly.
I very much ask. And it's not even an ask. It's like, could I please... No, it's fine. Yeah. You know what? It's fine. It's fine.
And
don't even worry about it.
I like to think the only times I give you that reaction is when I already have more than enough stuff to do, and I don't want to add anything more to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we've gotten older, I started appreciating why certain things, why there are certain reasons why people do things. So, as a kid, back on soccer, I did not want to do any gardening, because why would I? I was already doing tons of PE and other stuff at school. I didn't get any enjoyment out of it. But as an adult, you know, when you get the trials of the world and everything else are coming on you, there's something relaxing and calming about having a
physical labour.
About physical labour, but having something within your grasp that you can do. And I appreciated that about the
Something
gardening.
simple that you can just get your hands into it and not have to think too hard about it.
Yeah.
And just, physical labour. Because we both have jobs that require a lot of mental
work.
capacity. It's nice to just...
I mean, you are mental.
We're both mental, let's face it. But it's nice to just be able to shut your brain off and just do something with your hands or with your whole body, really, because gardening is like...
Oh yeah, it's a full
it's
body
not just your
workout.
hands.
You don't need to hit the gym in a day. You're doing like 6 hours or 7 hours in a garden.
Yeah.
You're sorted.
But yeah.
But yeah, that was...
I think we've bored people enough with our garden topic. Moving on.
Okay. Let's talk about something similar to gardening, because you're pulling out weeds in it, Resident Evil 8. So, Anna and I
played it.
have been, she's been watching
You've
me,
played it, I've watched it.
and she's watched several other people
Yes.
play for Resident Evil 8 The Village, and let's just be honest, I'll get this out of the way first. It's a good game. It's a very solid game.
It is a good game.
It's fun. I don't think it's scary as the last one. I think
some of the views in it as well are beautiful. It's got beautiful views.
Beautiful vistas and stuff. And when I say scary, I mean it still has its moments. It does what I can only describe as the video game jump scare in a few points. The part I'm thinking in particular is when you are looking... Spoilers, by the way. When you are looking at a window to find a code to unlock a safe, and you've got to sort of just match these numbers that are written on items beyond the window, and the moment you get into the right spot to see all of them, a goddamn monster appears and jump scares you out the window. And it's the dumbest thing. But yeah, it does have one particularly very, very scary element. I want to say it's like if Resident Evil did PT, we played it at one point. I'm not sure if you remember. It's essentially this guy just walking around a house, and each time he walks around, the house gets steadily more and more screwed up, and he's sometimes chased by things.
Yeah.
It's like a weird time loop thing. And it's like the Resident Evil version in this game was super scary. And it's like one of the most horrific monsters you could imagine, as well as the thing that's chasing you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we played through that, and that was really great. What did you think about Lady Big Titty Goth Girlfriend, Lady Dimitrescu?
Oh God! You mean the lady that everyone's simping over?
The arch simp, yes.
So you're not so much. I mean, I don't know if you're just quiet about it because we're married. So you're best not.
I can appreciate Lady Dimitrescu.
I can appreciate Lady Dimitrescu.
I think I can appreciate her. I don't think I need to be like literally
Dimitrescu. Not Dimitrescu. Dimitrescu. Apparently, that's what she's called.
I can appreciate Lady Dimitrescu, but I've got there's porn on the internet. Okay, I don't think this is a shocking revelation for people. You'll find harder things online. Is it just that she's really tall,
or is it the big boobs and big butt? Because
I think it's all of it.
Just the combination of tall woman with big boobs and big butt.
I think guys have like a power fantasy of it's something innate to them about a big, strong woman coming along and just, I don't know, sitting on their face. That's kind of the reaction I got from a lot of these streamers who were playing it.
You mean a lot of guys want to be subs?
Yeah, essentially, to this lady.
I got that vibe as well. I mean, I can think of a particular... as you said, I've watched a lot of different players.
Yeah.
A lot of different streamers, YouTubers, play it. And there's a particular one that I can think of that is just...
He does like a 43-second damn when he sees the first
biggest simp. Like,
for that character.
Yeah, but even like every episode, like he starts it off...
I do...
With
like,
her statue, even after he kills her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's something...
Spoiler.
That's something I want to bring up, by the way. A nice segue into that. The Lady Dimitrescu, or Dimitrescu.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm going to say pretty heavy in the advertising for this game. So you probably weren't aware of this.
I don't know if she's heavy in the advertising or if it's just you've heard so many people
lose their mind about her.
Simping over her so hard that you just somehow think that she's going to be a big part of the game.
I do think it was the advertising because they released a demo. Demos, for people who aren't aware, are something that kind of went out of fashion about 10 years ago for two reasons. One, demos are essentially playable chapters of your game, which mean that if they're good, you've got a real good shot of getting people who are already interested in the game are going to definitely want to get your game even more.
Yeah.
But if they're bad, then all you've done is take the people who were interested in getting your game and put them off your game. And the second part is they cost money to make. But in this one, they released essentially her section, a good chunk of her
game.
chapter into a demo for people to play, and people lost their minds, especially when the trailer. I think the first trailer was literally like, there's a part where you're strung up. The part where you're strung up and she's there in front of you.
Yeah.
That was the part that was like really played up in the trailer.
Yeah, apparently a lot of streamers and just players apparently want to be subs.
They do
to
want to be
Vampire Lady.
I would agree. I think a lot of guys want to be. I said them. They want to be their face sat on by ladies.
Okay,
it's true.
I think we've just hit PG-13.
Use them like a seat.
Oh Jesus Christ!
I could have gone somewhere else, so that was way worse, but I'm going to keep it at
PG-13.
Okay,
let's keep it at PG-13.
But do you think a lot of them were let down when they played the game? And because I know I felt let down, and it's like she's the first boss, really.
Yeah, she's the first boss, and it's over pretty quickly, all things considered. But the thing is, I didn't go through the demo, so I didn't have that impact of like, she must be a big part of the game.
Yeah.
What I did get was a lot of people simping over her, and because of that, it never occurred to me that she would be the first boss.
Yeah, she's such a popular character.
It would be over within the first,
I think within like the first 2 hours on a normal game, you'll probably get through her section.
Yeah,
which is weird when you think about it, considering like how much fanfare she gets. Part of that, I think, the reason as to why a lot of people feel like it's kind of abrupt and weird that she doesn't come back. So they obviously style her character, or at least her gameplay, similar to Mr. X from the Resident Evil 2 and Nemesis games.
I wouldn't know.
So I know you've watched people play them.
I only came in at Resident Evil 7.
Yeah. But in those games, the remakes came out recently, so that I've played through those. In Resident Evil 2, Mr. X he's a tyrant. Okay, he's essentially the Terminator, but a bioweapon. And what he does is he's like always patrolling the area wherever the player is, and he's a constant presence, chasing after you. You can't kill him. You'll only slow him down. And it's like this constant need to move and pressure, and it's really tense and really scary. In Resident Evil 8, there's a good chunk of that area, like the castle area, she will just follow you around.
Yeah.
And unlike some of the other enemies, she can walk into sunlight as well with no issues, and she'll just follow you, and that's terrifying. Like, that's Mr. X sort of stuff. But part of the reason that kind of makes it... Oh, and kind of makes it a little bit disappointing is it's only for such a short amount of time that she's actually is doing that sort of same... You get the same feeling of pressure.
Yeah, for the most part, you're just dealing with her daughters.
Yep, and when she is chasing you, it's very easy to get away from her.
You should put a spoiler alert at...
I put a spoiler alert at the start.
We sort of mentioned it anyway. But yeah...
The other thing that I think makes it a little... Sorry, go on.
No, yeah, I was just going to say, you're mostly dealing with her daughters, and it's only towards the end that, obviously, like, in that section, it's like you're dealing with her daughters first, and you're getting the sort of hang of it, and then you deal with... And there's another few monsters in between. And then you're dealing with Lady Dimitrescu.
Exactly.
And she's the final boss of that section.
But I think the other part I want to say, which makes it a little bit disappointing, considering how built up she was the fact that in Resident Evil 7, you have Jack Baker, who is, like, he's the first enemy you encounter in the game.
Yeah.
he chops off your hand. No, that's Mia, sorry.
No.
He
Yeah,
tries to
it's
kill you
Mia, though.
multiple times. He also chases you around the house at times.
Yeah.
You fight him on at least 2 separate occasions without including the DLC in that game. And he as part of that, he comes back. Even after he demolds or gets destroyed, he comes back.
Yeah.
And I think what people are kind of hoping is that even if you do kill some of these characters, they would come back later. Because it feels too video gamey in the sense that, this is the boss of that area. Done. Move on. And that's one of the negatives
You do get a sense of, like, it's very
there's a lot of video
structured.
game logic in this game.
It's very structured. You're very much told, oh, so now you go into this section, and in this section you find that you have to fight, among other monsters, you have to fight the 3 daughters, and then the boss, Lady Dimitrescu. And you get that sense straight away. And then you're told, okay, now you have to defeat the 3 other lords.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, so you go in order, and it has to be in that order because you can't.
And there's no interaction between the characters during the timescale as well. So Lady Dimitrescu, she I think has the most interaction with everyone else. She talks to Mother Miranda at one point during your chapter with her, and then that's it. Like, if she had died and then the other characters, they start, there's, infighting, or they start working together. And I think with Heisenberg, they definitely hinted at the sort of infighting between him and Miranda. But they never actually, go... for whatever reason, they're all totally fine with Eve just going... I call him Eve, by the way. Just going around and just killing all of them one by one with no real, working together to stop him.
Yeah.
Which would be I feel like there is a better game story here where, let's say, you force, at the end of the first chapter, you stab Lady Dimitrescu and turn her into her dragon form. And then what she does, instead of, you have a fight with her, but instead of dying, she just flies off somewhere and then reappears from time to time throughout the game to hunt you down.
Yeah.
That, I think, would be a really, really nice bonus to, the gameplay. Because a lot of the time, you don't feel like you're under pressure. Because while you do have limited ammo and supplies, the enemies aren't actively seeking you out. Once you clear an area, it's mostly cleared.
Yeah, you're just going through the game, clearing areas and gearing up to the boss fights.
Yeah.
And it feels... It's like I say, it feels very structured.
It's very video game-esque. Well, opposed to the Baker Estate, which is a much smaller area, but you kind of always felt like there was something going on because they reused parts of the area and changed things up.
The characters in 7 were a lot more fleshed out in a way.
And the thing is, it's shocking to me as well, because in Resident Evil 8, I'm really interested in a lot of these characters. Dr. Moreau, for instance, seems like a really interesting character, because he had his own clinic in the village. He built a reservoir.
True.
There's a lot going on there. And then Angie as well, her and her puppet master are just super, super interesting to me. I'd love to spend more time exploring those characters, but it feels like for Moreau... And
Moreau especially, I feel like there was a lot to be said about him because he seemed very childlike towards Miranda.
So in the game's story, the Cadu she put into him, for whatever reason, made him sort of his mental state just deteriorated massively because of it. But supposedly beforehand, he was quite an intelligent person and was even a person who worked, or if not was friends with Miranda.
He felt very he looked at her as a mother figure. I mean, I know they all call her Mother Miranda, but he felt almost like he thinks she's his mother.
Well, like I said, in the Japanese version of the game, there is a section where, in this game as well, there's a section where you run into, in the US and European version, where you run into him and he's watching a TV that's just static. But I'm pretty sure in the Japanese version, or somewhere, it's meant to be explained that he is watching a romantic film. And when he says, "Oh, Mother Miranda, I'd do anything for you," the 2 characters are meant to be kissing. And the idea is he loves her in the same way as a child loves their mum, but there's a bit Oedipus complex going on here. He also wants to be with her. And there are certain things... I wouldn't be shocked if there was cut content from the game. Like, it didn't pass in time for release, because there are certain things that make me think they were going to go different ways with it. Like, the whole thing with why Miranda spends so much time pretending to be Mia at the start of the game, when she could obviously have killed Eve and taken Rose right then and there. Or why does Moreau say to Eve that, why is it that she wants you and not me?
Yeah.
And it kind of carts back to, like, Resident Evil 7, where Evelyn, the villain, wanted a family, and she wanted Eve to be, like, the new dad, because Jack was kind of just crazy now, and she didn't like him anymore.
He was, like, mentally gone.
Yeah.
This game felt, despite the fact that you said it was longer than 7.
I'm pretty sure it was longer than... I think most people will clear it in about 6 to 8 hours, where I think most people cleared 7 in about 6.
It felt longer. I don't know if it's because of the way we played it, if we spaced it out further before.
We did space out the gameplay in 8 a bit longer, but the thing is, what doesn't work for
8 or 7? Because 7 felt longer for me.
Yeah, no, so I think in 8 we spent about over 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks we played through all of 8. But with 7, I think the reason why it felt like it was longer, because there was less going on, but what was going on was extremely interesting and scary.
Yeah, I think I heard someone say, and I agree, I think 7 was a lot more horror-based.
Yes.
Whereas this one is a lot more action-based.
Yes, this is... So, a lot of people compare this game to is Resident Evil 4, which was kind of considered the action... The point in the series of games where they went action-adventure as opposed to horror. So action horror versus horror. Because now you have a hero who is like a special agent who's been trained. He punches boulders. He shoots things. He runs around mowing down hundreds and hundreds of zombies wherever he goes. And like he is the coolest guy and no one can hurt him. This game is very similar to that because they also introduced mechanics in Resident Evil 4 that are reintroduced here. Like the ability to go to a merchant, sell goods, buy upgrades, buy new weapons. That was all stuff introduced in Resident Evil 4 that came back again in Resident Evil 8. I think it was also in some of the other Resident Evil games, but mostly it was kind of left alone, and then RE8 kind of brought it all back. But yeah, they definitely went more for an action stint here. I kind of think that, in my mind, there's an extra 2 to 3 hours of this game which fleshes out a lot of these characters somewhere. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was lost. Because don't get me wrong, I enjoyed this game. I still think this is one of the best games released, at least in the last 2 years. But I do think that the only place that lets it down is sort of the story. I think there's more going on there with these characters, and I think it kind of gets let down because of it.
I do think it could have been more fleshed out.
Because they're just villain for villain, essentially. There's no real explanation behind them, and they might be leaving this for DLC that's coming out. But if so, I'll be a little bit disappointed because I felt like they could have done way more with the characters they've got. 'Cause some of them are super interesting. Like Dimitrescu is an interesting character. People obviously want to know more about her and experience more time with her in the game. Heisenberg.
Yeah, I'm not sure they want to get to know her better as so much as they just want more opportunities
we leave
to look at her.
to Rule 34 and DeviantArt. The Moreau is interesting. Angie, Heisenberg, they're all like really interesting characters with interesting abilities and stuff. And I'd love to see them like fleshed out more. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. The game, the only other issue I would say I have with the game is the Chris Redfield part. Do you remember Chris?
The part, no, I know. But the part where you play as him, or just his character altogether?
Not so much that part, more like his character in this game. Because so much of the plot comes from the fact that he won't tell Eve a very simple thing to tell him.
Yeah, if he just told him what he knows.
Exactly. Then it would have a lot of the stuff in this game.
probably wouldn't have been running away in the first
place.
place.
And Eve probably would have... Okay, big spoiler. Run away now if you don't want to hear this one. This is the biggest spoiler for the game. If you ever want to play this game, don't listen to this next part. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Eve dies at the end of this game.
Yeah.
And it could have been entirely avoided if he had just been told by Chris, hey, just work with me, man. It's cool. We'll just work together. It's fine.
I mean, he tries towards the end before Ethan dies.
But at that point, it's already, like, too late. Like, they should have been working together from the start.
True.
And all this secret, like, agent stuff is kind of just ridiculous.
It did feel very unnecessary. I think it's because he wanted to be sure that Ethan wasn't, like, what's the word? Possessed, I guess, for lack of a better word. But at the same time, like, if you've got him...
he shot and killed Miranda, why didn't he immediately, like, if Eve was possessed, why didn't he immediately, like, come after them? Instead he was like, whoa, why did you shoot Mia? And then he punched him in the face.
Yeah. Like, if he just explained the situation and said, we're keeping you under observation, and your daughter, because we want to make sure that neither of you is, like, possessed or something.
Oh, there are two more things that are issues that I might want to point out as well.
Okay, go on.
So issue number 2 is, why does Miranda separate Rose into several body parts and give them to the Lords?
Game.
Because
to give you an excuse to go and fight each of the Lords
but she
separately.
doesn't gain anything from killing the Lords.
No, of course not.
It's, at least if she does, it's never explained. Like, it would make more sense if it was like Miranda divided the power of the mold between these Lords in an attempt to create a vessel for her daughter. But now that she's found a better vessel, she needs you to kill the other Lords so that their mold power reverts back to the heart mold thing that's in the ground.
Yeah.
And that allows her the power to bring back her daughter in Rose.
But none of that is explained.
None of that's explained. And the other one was right at the very, it's just a piece of dialogue and it's so video gamey and ridiculous that it's kind of cringy. Right at the end, when you're literally about to start the fight with Miranda, there's a part where she picks up the baby and goes, "Oh, my powers are leaving me."
Yeah,
why did you say that?
But
Why?
also, that's never explained. Why are her powers leaving her then?
I'm assuming
Ethan hasn't done anything yet.
That in particular, I think, is quite possibly going to be something they're going to bring up in the next game. Or, like, maybe Evelyn, Rose. Like, she's now connected to the wider mold. She takes the powers away from Miranda and weakens her. But it's just a very cringy line to say to the player, now is the time when you can hurt her.
Yeah.
It's like that part in Suicide Squad where there's like they grab one of the guys and it's like, we cut her heart out. We can now kill her with it. Despite everyone knowing at this point, if you kill the heart, she's toast anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, it's such beat you over the head sort of thing.
I mean, you don't know that Miranda, again, spoilers, Miranda took Ethan's heart and he was still alive.
Yeah, fucking Mold Man, that's what it was.
Moldy man.
Moldy Man. So yeah, that was Resident Evil 8. Do you have any comments, last couple words you want to say on that?
I haven't played it, but I've watched you play it and I enjoyed it. But it just everything we've said so far.
It's very video gamey, where the last one didn't feel as video gamey.
Yeah, the last one felt very.
It still had some really stupid puzzles in it, but like.
Yeah, but it was immersive.
Yeah, you could feel it yourself into the horror a bit more. I would give this a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. It's closer to an 8 than it is a 7. Cool. So we did gardening. We've done Resident Evil 8. What else did we do this week, darling? I love you, darling.
Not the room.
Not the room.
Let's save
We'll
the
save
room.
that for another podcast.
We'll save the. Oh my god, that could be an hour-long podcast.
2
hours.
I'm gonna before that one. I want to get Greg Sestera's book on the room, the making of the room that he wrote.
Oh god, you want to read through
I want to read
talk
through
about
it. I want a lot of material for that. There's a lot of material out there. I want to make sure I've got everything before we go into that one.
Jesus.
Did you know there was they made a documentary about the room? Some guy without originally had Tomoso's approval, but then Tommy took it away because he found out a lot of information that apparently Tommy doesn't want shown. So Tommy sued him. This is the documentary that was made back in like 2016. And he sued him, and it's only just been dismissed. So it's getting released later this year, apparently. This documentary that was made in 2016 about the room. and how it was made and stuff.
Wow.
So I'm going to be on my...
I'll say one more thing, and then we'll use this as like a demonstration of what you might be able to hear on our upcoming podcast.
The Room podcast.
On The Room. But it's interesting because in like...
Sorry, dogs fighting
there's
outside.
A dog fighting outside. That was terrifying because it sounded so close.
It really did.
There's in the olden days of classic Hollywood,
Yeah.
studios had full control on an actor's image.
Yep.
Right? And they basically dictated what came out about this person, both in terms of work, as in acting, what they acted on, what work they got.
Yep.
And also on their personal life.
Very true, very true.
Anything that came out about them or that they were doing or that anything was basically controlled by the studios, and only what they wanted to come out would come out.
Yep.
In the media and
Absolutely.
anything else. And it's interesting because that's exactly what Tommy Wiseau is essentially doing, but instead of studios, it's himself. Only what he wants revealed about him.
Yeah.
Because no one knows where he's from.
No one knows where he gets his money from.
No one knows how he got his money. And it's so interesting that he's doing exactly what the studios were doing. He has full control of what comes out about him.
One of the things that makes the room so interesting, and I'll say this and then I'll be done as well, because I've got a neat transition here. Is that usually when a big vanity project like this gets released, it's usually like a guy who, with a bunch of his friends and like $30,000 at most, makes a movie about how awesome he is. This is that, but on steroids, because Tommy had money, lots and lots of money, and he was able to make this movie, and it's crazy. But yes, I will save everything else for the Tommy Wiseau, The Room podcast.
Yes.
But on the subject of directors and studios controlling people's lives, a couple of weeks back, we saw the movie Mank.
Yes, we did.
Do you remember much about Mank?
I remember most of it, I think.
Do you want to give us a brief rundown of it?
Oh, God, no. You do it.
Mank is and I'll directly listen to this from the Wikipedia page. Mank is a 2020 American black and white biographic drama about the screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz and how he wrote Citizen Kane. It's more than just a drama, though. It's very much a character piece, and the character piece is not just Mank, but Hollywood from that era. It was, I think, legendarily, it was written by David Fincher's dad and directed by David Fincher. So it looks immaculate.
It does look
on
really
a technical level. Everything looks fantastic.
The actors are great.
Even down to the acting is, everyone's giving it their all. They're fantastic. Not a bad performance out of anyone, and Gary Oldman has absolutely deserved an Oscar pick for
Gary
that.
Oldman was great,
and I think he did actually win the Oscar for that. I think as best actor. I need to look it up, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
There's only one movie that I do not forgive of Gary Oldman, and that's Dracula.
Oh yeah,
but that's my own personal.
You know what? That will be another podcast episode.
That has nothing to do with his performance.
I'm gonna force
that is because of me.
I'm gonna force you to watch that movie, and then we're gonna do
I've
a
already
podcast
seen that
on
movie.
it. I know we're gonna watch it against you
again.
But yeah, it's a fascinating movie, and so much of the props and stuff about it are just super interesting, especially if you're into old Hollywood. Like, there are so many names thrown around here, which if you know anything about like MGM or some of the like Line Pictures or just any of the big studios back then, you'll know a lot of these people.
Yeah.
Especially some of the tedious stuff that they all got up to behind the scenes.
It does feel a bit like a love letter to Hollywood, though.
That's the reason I won the Oscar, because Hollywood loves movies about Hollywood.
Yeah,
they absolutely adore it.
Although, if you go in with that mindset, like, and you like Hollywood, you like to hear about old Hollywood stories,
Yep.
you will like this.
The part of it about this movie, which I really enjoyed, I think the part which I think had the most I had the most connection with, or the most enjoyment out of, was seeing the relationship between Herman Mankiewicz and the person he would base the movie, the character of Citizen Kane on, Hearst Castle, who is like... Hearst Castle is essentially what you could imagine a aristocrat lord in America. Like, he is a uncompromising businessman who owns everything, everyone, every studio bows to his whim, every newspaper does what he asks. He wins elections for people.
He's basically Disney personified.
If he was more malevolent, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, Hearst Castle, like, the movie does a good job in showing this. His malevolence is not like, I'm an evil guy, so I do evil things. It's, he does what makes him money.
Yeah.
And makes him powerful.
Which, once you have money, that's what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, you enrich yourself further. And for him, that was it. So his actions in the movie are entirely aligned with that character, while Herman Mankiewicz instead is almost the opposite of a man who only real power is the power that comes from his brain. So he's willing to rub it in everyone's faces so he can be the smartest guy in the room, including be the most reckless and idiotic man in the room. He embraces like that lack of like almost financial powerness to an absurd degree as a character in an attempt to like also get back at people and at what he sees as wrong in Hollywood. It's super, super interesting. I do highly recommend people watch it. That said, I don't think I'll ever watch the movie again.
No, it's not a rewatchable one, is it? You watch it once and you learn about the history, and you Google the history if you don't already know it, and you move on from it.
Like, some of it as well is that you, as like when you watch this movie, if you don't already have an enjoyment or fascination with old Hollywood, I don't see what you get massively out of this.
You wouldn't find it interesting if you don't already have a fascination for old Hollywood.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's the same like for anyone wanting to watch Citizen Kane itself. I don't think anyone without an interest
in classic cinema
and in Hollywood, I don't think they would get a lot out of it.
As part of that's because Citizen Kane, as time moves on, a lot of films that are groundbreaking for the time period are no longer groundbreaking. Citizen Kane still has some masterfully shot scenes. A lot of the dialogue is still very, very good. The whole thing about Rosebud and the metaphor of that is
that's the biggest part
classic. It's the biggest part of the movie. Orson Welles' performance is great, and also the actor they got to play Orson Welles is a goddamn dead ringer. He looks so similar to the real Orson Welles, even to the voice is like it's very freaky.
Very true.
But yeah, I would recommend this movie for those who are interested in it.
We're nearly reaching the end of the podcast, so I'll just ask a question, still on the topic. How much money do you think you need to get before it goes from I want to achieve something to I want to achieve more money? Rather than, do you understand what the question is?
I think I don't understand that. It's like, at what point does it stop becoming about happiness and become more about the I get fulfillment out of how much money I make?
I need to have more and more and more because I already have everything I need.
Yeah, because at some point it goes from money helps me get the things that fulfill me to money is fulfillment.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, like, once you already have everything that you aspire to, whether that be a job, whether that be a house,
all these items,
cars, anything, once you already have all of those things and you have enough money to get those things, surely it stops being about getting those things and it just becomes about getting more and more money.
Essentially, it all boils down to, you probably start thinking, okay, now I've got all these things, this goes for my retirement, and then after you've got a fairly big retirement, you're like, okay, well now I want more. I read something, I can't tell you exactly where it is, but I read an article about a study where someone worked out that on average, most people, when they get to about, at least in the UK, when they get to about £75,000 annual income, it's no longer about they don't get any further enjoyment out of increasing the amount of money they get. So, because especially in the UK, if you're earning like 75 grand, you're now in like the top 4% of earners in this country. So in theory, you can live probably anywhere. You can, with enough time, probably buy yourself a decent house, anything you want. It becomes more about, if you want more money from that, I'm assuming it's no longer about happiness. It's about wanting to either do more or being able to just get more out of it.
Well, I don't know about you, but in my experience, and we really have to shut down now. In my experience, I get more enjoyment out of trying
new experiences and stuff.
No. I get more enjoyment out of working towards something than the actual thing itself.
I agree.
Because the actual thing itself, like going on a holiday, your holiday only lasts 1 week.
But it's like many of
or however many days you take a holiday.
It's like many of the DIY projects I've got. I could go pay someone to give me all the stuff I need immediately, but I want to make some of it myself.
It does feel like a lot of life. You get enjoyment out of life if you fight for things. If you just have
struggle.
everything handed to you, then there's no fulfillment, there's no enjoyment because you're just getting things. And what you need to fulfill you is get more things and more things.
When this podcast blows up and we earn millions and millions and millions, and have children, we're going to have to figure another podcast episode about how do we divide our incomes for our kids. And on that, I'm Markeen.
I am Anna, and we have been
Linear
Random.
Salut!